Gateway Development Consortium, a $1 billion 10-year plan to develop downtown Shreveport's Cross Bayou area. Aaron, what was it that the governor had the official...
The governor's official statement to us, and I asked twice, a couple of weeks ago and 2 weeks prior to that, because the folks here were saying that the governor was on board with building a state office building at Cross Bayou and was on board and doing what the state could to help. On board was the word. So I emailed the governor's people and said, what do they mean? Is the governor on board? And they said twice, Jay, the only thing the governor has said about this project is that it is, quote, intriguing.
So what's the governor's stance? Has it changed? Bring us up to date.
No, it's not changed. It's been consistent from the get-go, and I think I may have been the first administration official to meet with the Cross Point Bayou folks, and we had a very good meeting. I think intriguing is a good word that the governor's used. There has been no commitment at all. But it's a very interesting project, and there are a lot of questions to be answered, not the least of which are, number one, is the city on board with doing this, and number two is the legislative delegation behind the state making a pretty significant move, because the request that was made in my meeting was for the state to vacate the state office building that it owns and occupies in Shreveport, and to occupy a building that would be constructed as part of this project. And we're usually in the business of wanting to occupy places we own rather than lease. So this would be a different move for us to go to leased property, but it's something we didn't dismiss outright. But obviously there are just a lot of questions that have to be answered, but there is no commitment whatsoever at this point.
So in your mind, in the governor's mind, there is a gap, a space between intriguing and on board.
Yeah, there's a big gap there, but that doesn't mean that the project's been dismissed. It just means that there are a lot of questions that have to be answered, and a lot of folks that have to step up and say, this is what we think is best for the Shreveport area, and for the legislative delegation in that area to be on board. You know, you never have complete agreement with everybody in an area's legislative delegation, but you certainly want to get a sense that most of the people who represent the Shreveport-Bossier area in northwest Louisiana are behind doing something of this magnitude. It has great potential. I don't think there's any question about that, but it's a very large, ambitious, and expensive plan.
Jay, let me ask you this, because I have spoken with folks with the state office of, I don't know the official title, Buildings and Grounds or whatever.
Buildings and Grounds, that's right, yeah.
And they tell me that money has now already been budgeted, and they told me millions has already been budgeted for refurbishing the state office building at Jordan and Fairfield. Can you update me on that? What's the status of that?
The building is old, and it obviously has some problems, and if we're going to stay in that building for some period of time, there are going to have to be some improvements made. So it's an appropriate time to be having this discussion before the state invests a considerable amount of money in upgrading the state office building. And that's why it's certainly timely to be having this discussion. And in my understanding, and of course I'm on the outside of this as to what's going on in the Shreveport area, but it's certainly timely for the leadership in Shreveport, legislative delegation, and local officials to be discussing the viability of this project and whether everyone believes the investment is appropriate.
Do you know or not whether those millions have started to be spent already? I know we do annual work there, but the millions that have been set aside, have we already started dipping into that to improve it? Because I'm told if we start spending those millions to upgrade, there's no chance state leaders are going to agree to a new deal.
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer as I sit right now. I will find out and respond back to you today with an answer on that. I just don't know how much, if anything, we've started spending on those buildings. I know over the years we certainly have made continual investments. It's an old building, and you have to do stuff to maintain the building. And my guess is we probably have already spent some money, but I can't really address the millions, but I'll let you know.
Okay.
Mr. Jay, when Larry English from Gateway Development Consortium was here, when he was in studio with us a couple of weeks ago, and I know Aaron will correct me or get as close to the exact quote as I can, but I think this is pretty close. He told us that the governor, am I way off the mark here, that he had his checkbook ready?
He said we have money for affordable housing. Can you give us more on that? Is
that a bit of an overreach, a misstatement, do you think?
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to comment on whether it's a misstatement because I didn't hear exactly what he said. But there is money that the state spends on affordable housing, yes. And I think the leadership of this project is most interested in opportunity zone dollars that are coming out of Washington and that could be taken advantage of if this is designated as an opportunity zone. And that may be what he's referring to when he talked about affordable housing. But in terms of if it was said that the governor has the checkbook ready, that's not accurate. I mean, we don't have the checkbook ready because we haven't made a commitment to the project.
Do you need to see legislative action in support of this? Do you need to see city council action? What do you think the governor needs to see on his desk before he says, you know what, let's pursue this. Let's lend a hand. Let's start drawing up some plans.
Yeah, I think we need to make certain that the legislative delegation in the area agrees that this is a wise investment for Northwest Louisiana, and they would support state dollars going toward this project. And we need to see what level of commitment the parish or the city or whatever combination it may be of local officials want to move in this direction. It's a very ambitious, very strong potential economic development project, but it's going to cost a lot of money, and there's going to have to be a commitment both at the local level and perhaps at the state level as well.
Jay, one curveball, if you don't mind, and you can tell me to jump in the lake.
Do it, whether you answer the question or not, because that'll be a great soundbite for later.
Monday, your life changes again. Do we have anything new yet on the revenue estimating conference? Have they agreed? This is unprecedented, I think.
I'm never going to tell you to jump in the lake, Aaron. I'm always answer your questions, but I don't know. You have to ask Taylor Byraw, the speaker, as to where he's going to be. I believe Taylor is going to agree to a revenue estimate when we meet, I hope, on April the 10th, which will be pretty soon. Mm-hmm. I haven't spoken to him and had a commitment that he is going to do that, but he's certainly made overtures in the past that he is going to recognize a revenue estimate as it gets later in the year. Well, it is later in the year, and we're getting very close to when the Appropriations Committee will move an appropriations bill to the floor of the House during this legislative session within the next month to 6 weeks. And so I don't think the Speaker is going to let that happen until he's recognized a revenue estimate. So I do think it will happen. I hope it happens on April 10th so we can end all the uncertainty and cloud and confusion that's hanging over how much money we have to spend, and then the legislature can get about the business of deciding where they want those dollars to go.
Pertaining to the jump in the lake remark, ever the diplomat, Jay Dardenne, State Commissioner.
I didn't say anything about you, Robert.
Oh, I love you, Jay.
Zinger. Well, we hope you can make it up here soon. So, thank you, Mr.
I
Jay.
hope to be up there soon as well. Thanks, guys.